Hi again, Christian here from 1-800-ACCOUNTANT. Just wanted to give you another update relating to the CARES Act and the recent extension and additional funding relating to the Payroll Protection Program, also known as the PPP. Now, I know we're all locked in to our homes under quarantine and shelter in place, so I hope you are not getting too stir crazy. I'm also hoping that all of you are healthy and safe, and I want to thank again the essential workers that are out there to support and keep everything flowing. So our grocery chains, our restaurants, and of course our caretakers and emergency personnel. Thank you from all of us for supporting us during these times. Before we get started, just want to make sure that you like and subscribe to our page and to keep up with the most current tax topic along with trends relating to your industry. So let's get started. So as you may know, 1-800-ACCOUNTANT is a virtual accounting firm serving small businesses and self-employed individuals just like yourselves. Our full-service accounting firm includes top talented CPAs and EAs just like me from across the U.S. And one of the topics that everybody's talking about, especially in the media, is the Payroll Protection Program. I want to go over some of the basic information along with the application process. I won't go into too much detail because the application itself is pretty complicated and I don't want to bore you to death. So let's get to it. So the Payroll Protection Program is part of the stimulus and economic relief available for small businesses that's geared towards businesses that have payroll. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be running payroll for certain types of businesses, but I'll go over all the qualifications and then, of course, the rules behind the forgivable portion of the PPP, as I like to call it, to make sure that that loan is forgivable. So let's go over some of the requirements and the basics. All right, so let me just pull it up real quick. So what is the PPP? So the PPP is part of the stimulus spending bill that the U.S. Treasury and Congress passed to help small businesses to retain their employees so that they are not furloughed they are paid or at least rehired or retained. One of the major issues is that unemployment has skyrocketed during this pandemic due to the shelter in place and the quarantine set by local jurisdictions along with state level and of course federal level jurisdiction. So this literally had an economic or disastrous effect to the economy, and so this stimulus package is to help keep small businesses afloat while retaining payroll and their employees. All right, so it's an SBA. The PPP loan and advance is an SBA approved loan that is applied through your bank or lender who is enrolled in the PPP loan program. All right, and then of course, if your bank is already an SBA lender, they will also be able to service and support your loan. If you're not sure, or if you don't have a bank that has a relationship with or participating in this program, you'll want to call us. All right, and we'll be able to help support you. The loan provides the lesser of $10 million or 2.5 months of average annual payroll costs. All right, so there's some calculation involved in there, but you'll definitely want to make sure that you understand that when you apply for the loan. All right, and then of course, the loan repayment, the loan amount, again, is lesser of $10 million or 2.5 months of your average annual payroll costs. The loan repayment is deferred for 6 months. And then, of course, the payoff period is 2 years at a 1% interest rate. All right, no collateral is required. However, substantiation and supporting documents are required before you get approved for the loan and advance. So what are the benefits of this program? So the benefits, from what I see, is it's potentially forgivable as long as you follow certain rules and meet certain criteria. All right, the forgiven principal amount, so again, if the loan is forgiven, is also not non-taxable. So the principal and the interest associated that is forgiven is not going to be subject to tax. All right. And then, of course, when can you apply for the loan? So initially, the application for the Payroll Protection Program opened up on April 3rd for sole props, single member, LLCs, and then, of course, for self-employed individuals or unincorporated businesses or unincorporated individuals, such as subcontractors or gig workers that are paid by 1099s. They were able to apply for the loan as of April 10th. Just so you know, they ran out of funding initially, and then of course they opened up and added additional funding on the 27th of April. So you definitely want to apply sooner than later. Some more qualifications I want to go over before you do apply. So let's get through that. All right. So you have to qualify as a small business with accordance to the IRS. All right. So for example, your average net worth can't exceed $15 million. And then, of course, you cannot have more than $5 million in net income. All right, so you want to make sure that you actually meet the qualification as a small business, again, with accordance to the IRS. The businesses can be incorporated as an LLC, partnership, S corp, corporations, certain nonprofits, veteran organizations, and then certain government recognized, or at least certain tribes that are recognized by the government. Want to double check with that. At least you want to double check to see if you qualify, if you fall into those categories as a business. If you're not sure, you definitely want to consult with your tax professional. Sole proprietors, as I mentioned before, independent contractors, gig economy or gig workers that get paid by 1099s would also qualify to apply for the Payroll Protection Program. You also have to have been up and operational as of February 15th, 2020 or before. You also have to have 500 or less employees. Certain exceptions do apply based on your industry niche code. You also have, again, if you're a paid independent contractor, you would potentially qualify. Some rules behind that. Then, of course, your primary business activity cannot be deriving income from lending or investments. Other type of activity also include passive activity, real estate, certain percentage of gambling or legal gambling, and then of course prurient in nature, meaning sexually suggestive or sexual in nature. And then of course you still have to meet the qualifications that are set by SBA.gov. So you'll have to read that in detail. So not only do you have to meet the qualifications as a small business and the rules that I just laid out, but also you have to follow the qualification standards set by SBA.gov. Now, the interesting portion that everyone wants to talk about is how do I have this, how can I have this loan be forgiven? All right, so it's complicated, so I want to try to keep it as simple as possible. But let's try to approach it from a high level and let's get granular afterward. So 75% of the loan taken needs to be used for payroll expenditures. All right, and what I mean by payroll expenditure are payroll processed through W-2. So again, the payroll had to have been placed in service before February 15th, along with the business. This also includes wages, salaries, commissions, reported tips, meaning reported tips for Social Security and Medicare tax. So cash tips that are not reported would not qualify. And then, of course, federal and state payroll taxes are also part of the expenditures relating to payroll. Continuation of benefits such as group health insurance, paid sick leave, medical, family, and certain other insurance premiums, retirement benefit contributions, again, in my previous video. That's an interesting one. And then, of course, you are also subject to phase-outs for higher paid employees. So if you exceed $100,000 in gross salaries, then there's a calculation for the phase out on what you would qualify for as forgivable. And then, of course, another rule is that if you had a certain headcount of employees before having to furlough or lay off your employees due to the coronavirus pandemic, you need to restore the same headcount no later than the 30th of June, 2020. All right, so again, the Payroll Protection Program is geared toward maintaining your employees. Then, of course, the other 25% or less. All right, so the other 25% or less can be used for expenditures that were placed in service before February 15th, 2020. All right, and then again, it has to be business related, so it cannot include personal expenses. This can include debt obligations or obligations that you signed, such as mortgages, business mortgages, leases, rent, and anything that would be associated for those obligations. It also has to be ordinary and necessary. All right, so be mindful of that. Again, the total amount cannot exceed, it has to be 25% or less of the loan that you can use that for. So majority of the loan has to be used for payroll itself. Now, for self-employed individuals or single-member LLCs that do not run payroll, all right, so for those of you who report it on a schedule on your individual tax returns, your calculated payroll or equivalent to payroll under their consideration is having net profits from net profits or net profits from 1099 income. All right, so if you don't report self-employment income, you would not qualify. All right, S corps and corporations. First, you have to have payroll expenditures. And then, of course, if you're the only person on payroll, you have to make sure that that was set up before February 15th. And then the big question that a lot of people are asking is, are distributions, dividends, owners, draw, guaranteed payments, would they count as payroll? Unfortunately, currently they do not count as payroll. So for those of you, especially with S corps, who are nominating a salary and did not elect to have payroll ran, you want to revisit your position on not running payroll. there's a lot of additional benefits with having payroll, especially when it's associated with a corporation or an S corp, S corporation. All right, so definitely want to discuss that with your tax professional. General partnerships qualify as reporting net profits to each portion of the ownership. All right, so the partnership itself can apply for the Payroll Protection Program, similar to a single member or a sole proprietor that reports a schedule filing on their individual tax returns. Other considerations that I've ran into with my clients are what is considered payroll. So if you run a business that issue 1099 to subcontractors, that's not considered payroll. And the reason that is because they individually would qualify for the PPP program themselves. All right, and then of course, as I mentioned before, S corporations with nominated salaries or officer compensation that's not ran through W-2 or a payroll company, they currently would not qualify, even though those nominated salaries or officer compensation is subject to self-employment tax. That's a whole nother discussion. The lead time is similar to the other programs or the other loan available, which I mentioned in my previous video, is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. The turnaround time is about 2 to 3 weeks. Excuse me, gotta get a drink. So, and then of course, you also have to consider consolidation of your economic injury disaster loan that you might have been approved for. So if you got approved for the EIDL, you would have to consider consolidating that, or they might make you consolidate that SBA loan, EIDL, over to your PPP. Remember, that may potentially cause a cash flow issue. And again, consult with a professional before you take that application, because there's a difference between a 30-year payoff period through EIDL versus a 2-year payoff period through PPP. Other things to consider is what type of documentation do I need to show proof that I've had payroll. Pretty straightforward. Usually they will ask for payroll documents from the payroll processing company that you utilize. If you're not sure how to get that, reach out to us. You also should have supporting evidence of expenditures for like loans, and bookkeeping should be up to date, because more than likely these lenders will ask for monthly statements showing proof that you maintained a certain headcount through payroll, you maintain payroll, and then of course you're not utilizing a loan to cover any other expenditures that would exceed 25% of the amount that you received. All right. And then of course, should you file your 2019 tax returns? Yes, you should file them sooner than later. Again, supporting evidence relating to business activities such as payroll and other expenditures are needed. One of the documents that most lenders and banks are asking for are your 2019 business returns along with your 2019 personal tax returns. It's not mandatory, but it shows more proof or supporting evidence, which will give you a higher chance of getting approved for the loan, which potentially could be forgivable. Other questions that my clients are asking is strategies relating to retirement. This is actually the best time to consider talking to your financial advisor. If you don't have a financial advisor, we have an in-house team that are completely focused on how to position your business and you individually during the pandemic. All right, so there's different positions that you can take while utilizing the PPP so that you get the best tax benefit immediately and then also in the long term. That's something you want to call us about. Other things I want to go over, just to give a summary, is relating to the application itself. It's pretty in depth on the application. I went over some of the eligibility. Again, you have to be a small business, less than 500 employees. You could be a nonprofit. Just going through. You're not eligible if. Here's another one that I didn't mention earlier, is that if you are a household employer, all right, and then of course if any of the owners that have 20% or more who were incarcerated on parole, subject to an indictment, had any formal criminal charges are brought in any jurisdictions, or have been convicted of a felony within the last 5 years. All right, so definitely want to make sure all your business owners do not fit that parameter. All right, and then of course you haven't been delinquent on any other SBA or SBA loan or federal loan. You haven't been delinquent with them. So one of the things you might want to think about is are you current with student loans? I know that there's other programs relating to that. That's a whole different subject. But if you've defaulted on any federal loans or SBA loans, you potentially would not qualify. Loan terms. Loans are capped at 2.5 times the average payroll costs. There's also adjustments relating to seasonal workers. That's something that'll be covered later. And then, of course, loans will be funded within 10 days upon approval. All right, so that's, when they say 10 days, I have a feeling it's more like 10 business days. All right. The loan is forgivable if 75% of the loan proceeds are used to cover payroll, which I mentioned before. The remainder can be used for debt obligations such as mortgage interest, rent, utilities. And now this is only over an 8-week period between February 15 and June 30th. All right. Of course, forgiveness is based on employer maintaining or quickly rehiring employees and maintaining salaries. So not only are you required to have a certain head count, you also have to maintain a similar salary. Again, it cannot exceed $100,000. Loan is a 2-year term, and then of course the interest rate is 1%. Deferment is 6 months. And then, of course, here's one that just got updated. Approximately 7 weeks, 6 to 7 weeks from the closing or the signature of the loan, you have to submit evidence showing proof that you are utilizing the loan for what it's intended for. So you have to show payroll documents. You have to show the expenditures relating to debt obligations, again, not exceeding 25%. Any unforgiven loan, again, has to be paid over 2 years at a 1% interest rate. All right, you need to complete application instruction. You need to complete and sign necessary PPP, supplemental, and then of course they will run a background check along with a credit check relating to the business or you as individuals. You'll also need to provide payroll documents. Then also there's dates associated with that. It's almost like applying for a job. You also need to provide current bank statements. All right, so if you fail to provide that, then your loan will automatically be denied. All information must be completed. And of course, you have to meet the guidelines set by SBA to determine qualifications. I mentioned that before. Anything that is complete or missing will automatically mark your loan as unprocessed, or they will deny it. Some details again on what qualifies as payroll expenses. I mentioned some of them. You also have to then provide necessary information relating to the business. So basic business information that's usually provided on Form SS4. You also have to attest to information, self-attestation relating to all information being accurate. Again, meeting certain qualifications that I mentioned before. Self-certification. And then, of course, there's additional disclosures toward the end of the application. You'll probably want to read them in detail as they pertain to you and the business that is applying for the loan. So it's pretty complex. From what I see here, it's about 15 pages of information verification and more information requests. They're pretty in-depth on what they're looking for. And then, of course, the rules behind it. So you'll probably want to contact us or consult with a professional to go through the application process to make sure you have all necessary information. Again, the sooner you schedule an appointment with us, the quicker we can help you get these application process for you and your small business. I know there's a lot of information out there that's confusing through the media, through friends, through a friend of a friend, through Google. You'll want to consult with a professional when it comes to the amount of money that you potentially could be eligible for. So give us a call, and don't hesitate to ask for me or one of my colleagues. We're all here to help you during the confusing and quarantine. So give us a call. And thanks again. I look forward to hearing from you.